Penn State must go all in on this season, and you do that by hiring away the best defensive coordinator in the country.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. My name is Zach Seyko. I am your host of this live show. All the rumors surrounding Jim Knowles possibly leaving Ohio State. Penn State is certainly pursuing him, but we're going to discuss it. So I want to preface everything. This is a discussion. I will tell you what I know from talking to people that are close to the Ohio State situation, the Oklahoma situation, and then how Penn State benefits in all this, right? But that's the main takeaway here. It's not so much about even if, when, or will it happen, but this is the kind of move that Penn State needs to make to show that it is committed to competing at the highest level in college football, that they need to go all in. Of course, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the live chat. We'll talk about and get your comments and reactions and questions in all of this. But Penn State needs to go all in on this season and hire a defensive coordinator like Jim Knowles, because you lost a quality one in Tom Allen. So how do you make up for that when you already have a championship roster? This is the biggest takeaway, is that there is a championship window, and it is the biggest for Penn State since the mid-2000s. Those teams I think of the team that ultimately won the Orange Bowl against Florida State. I think of the one that in 2008 with Daryl Clark as the quarterback. You have never had an opportunity this large since then, and you haven't won a national title in 40 years. Penn State needs to go all in, be aggressive, do what it takes to hire the caliber that Jim Knowles is. And this is on top of the fact that it's away from, you're hiring somebody away from Ohio State, the team that has been a thorn in your side for how long? You have one win in the past decade. So this is a massive statement that I think would send shockwaves and put Penn State in a category by itself. They would be the team. They would become the team to beat going into the 2025 season, because I'm already confident that they are in position without Jim Knowles to make a deep postseason run again. They only made it that far because they played Boise State and SMU. Okay, that's fine. If you want to say that, I still think Penn State can get back to the national semifinal without Jim Knowles in the blueprint. But if they get him, that makes Penn State, I mean, you were already seeing the way too early top 25 rankings come out, and people have Penn State either solidly in the top 3, which is where I would put them, right? I think there's some discrepancies here when you have Texas looming, of course, and then what are Oregon and Ohio State going to do? But at this point in time, Penn State is solidly a top 3 team. They would be the team to beat. They would be the number 1 team going into the season if they make this move and hire away Jim Knowles. So my point is, go all in on this season, because you're never going to get an opportunity like this again. You have been without a national championship in 40 years or so, right? Give or take. And I know the 1994 one, but that's the one that people objectively agree with, is that it's been a long time. It has been a really long time since Penn State won a title, regardless, even if you count what happened in 1994. So land Jim Knowles, do whatever it takes, because especially since this has gone from, this is a rumor that's circulating, but this was something that was a once in a lifetime or a dream-like scenario that Penn State could possibly poach, or even think about poaching one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, and one away from Ohio State. Ohio State of all schools, right? The team that has run the Big Ten for the better part of the decade here, and then Michigan came in, and now Ohio State just won, and the reigning national champion, right? But now this is becoming, at least the way it's framed, as a possibility. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be pricey. You do it. You pay him, because you will get a return on your investment. Of course, this is banking on the fact that you make it to and win a national championship. But if Penn State is that committed to trying to win a national championship, these are the kind of moves that you have to make. So if they're going to do it, if they want a national championship that badly, you have to show that commitment. And it shows that commitment to winning in this day and age of college football. It also shows a commitment to James Franklin, to giving him the best assets to go that far. They brought Drew Aller back. They brought Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, Denai Dennis Sutton, Zach Wheatley, Zane Durant, Nick Dawkins. Guys that could have gone off to the NFL are back. You do not waste this opportunity, because the window will slam shut if you can't make a push for him. If he's available, you go and try to make this push, whatever it takes. What that would take, it would take him being the highest paid defensive coordinator, or the highest paid coordinator in the entire country. It would take $3 million plus. Let's just put the ballpark out there, because I think the highest coordinator overall is paid 2.75, 2.8 million. You're going to have to reset the market and make a $3 million offer to Jim Knowles. But do this. I don't think Anthony Poindexter would be a bad defensive coordinator, but at least in my mind, this is where it seems like Penn State's options are. Either go make the biggest splash of the college football offseason, make yourself the undisputed number one team going into the preseason for college football in 2025, going into August, going into the fall, or hire Anthony Poindexter, make the promotion, and you're still kind of having to battle your way. You still have the respect, but you're not the top team. You're not the top dog. And let's be honest. Jim Knowles being at Penn State, he is the best defensive coordinator in the country, because I do see, what's the appeal of a Jim Knowles? Why would you even want him? He just constructed 2 top 3 defenses in back-to-back seasons, 2023, 2024. He's coming off of a national title win. They just won a national title, and you don't want that defensive coordinator. For Penn State fans that are skeptical or think that you don't want the defensive coordinator from the reigning national champion. I find that questionable. But I say do what it takes. If the price tag is hefty, pay it. Why? Because you are going to get a return on that investment. And it's going to be more than just dollar for dollar, right? Well, I get it. $3 million is a lot, and it's not my money to spend. It's Penn State, so I can talk in this manner. But when I look at it, you're making an investment in the fact that you have not won a national championship, objectively speaking, for 40 years. Okay? So if you were able to accomplish that, then you are going to get the recognition. You're going to get the brand awareness, because people don't look at Penn State as a true blue blood. Penn State fans might, but objectively speaking, again, Penn State is not viewed as this perennial team in college football. It's Alabama, it's Georgia, it's Notre Dame, it's Ohio State, it's Michigan. Penn State is viewed in this modern world of college football as this 10-2 team. They're good. They deserve respect, but they're not one of the best in the country. They're always going to be 3rd or 4th in the Big Ten, and they're always going to sneak into the 12 in this new 12-team playoff. Change that. Change that stigma. Be the team that is going to be consistently right in the thick of it, and this is the kind of move that you make. So, by investing in a defensive coordinator like this, you're going to get the money back. If you make a deep postseason run, you will get, whether that's in, the revenue share, the sponsorship dollars, the merchandise, the brand awareness, it will all translate back. If that's what you're worried about. Well, we don't want, so resetting the market for a coordinator, it's okay to do that when you are going to make it back through all the other things. But that, of course, relies on the fact that they do make a deep postseason run. I already think that they can. I already think this is a top 3 team going into the 2025 season. Jim Knowles definitely changes that. He would fit in at Penn State. James Franklin would let him do his job, and it's a similar setup at Ohio State. Ohio State just lets Jim Knowles coach the defense. Does not interfere. Ryan Day does not interfere with what Jim Knowles wants to do. James Franklin will have a similar setup. Jim Knowles will be the head coach of the defense, and that's the way it's been. Nothing's going to change. Manny Diaz was the head coach of the defense at Penn State. Tom Allen was the head coach of the defense at Penn State for 1 season. But if you're going to not make a push for Tom Allen, and we talked about how Jim Knowles, in a perfect world, I didn't think this could happen. I am not afraid to admit that I didn't think we could get to this point. But Penn State has always viewed Jim Knowles very highly, and in a perfect world would want to hire him as the next defensive coordinator if he's available. If he's available, you make a push. You have to. This is about going all. It's not even so much about Jim Knowles. You could replace any whatever top defensive coordinator available. It is about going all in on the 2025 season and winning a national title, because after this season, you are going to lose a third year starting and consecutively third year starter at quarterback. Second year within the offense of Andy Kotelnicki. Who knows how long you have Andy Kotelnicki still? Is this his last season in Happy Valley? That's why you have to go all in the fact that you brought Singleton and Allen back. You get stars on defense back in Zane Durant and Denai Dennis Sutton. You have rising stars in AJ Harris and Tony Rojas, who very well might go off to the NFL after their junior seasons. I'm saying you have to, as the saying goes, you strike while the iron's hot. And if Jim Knowles is rumored to be available, because I'll tell you this, Oklahoma is pretty confident that they're going to land him. That's kind of what I've heard from my sources. From Oklahoma and Ohio State, there is definitely a concern that he is leaving, and Oklahoma is very confident that they're going to land him. Let's just put it that way. So Penn State, I can't say that I am overly confident that they do it, just because Oklahoma seems to be that way. They seem overly optimistic. But what I am saying is change that doubt. The doubt that I have and the doubt that other people have, well, Jim Knowles, why would he come to Penn State? Okay, that's fine. It's not necessarily a matter of when or what everything happens. My point is that push that, make that aggressive move to change that doubt that Penn State shouldn't even be in this conversation. So we got a conversation over in the live chat. We're going to get your thoughts, your reactions, your questions. I feel like covered a lot in that first opening segment there, but we have more to discuss about Jim Knowles, and if Penn State happened to miss out on him, what would happen next? We'll talk about it more on the other side of this break. And today's live show is brought to you by Gametime. Attending the NFL playoffs is an experience like no other, whether it's the energy, the excitement, and the connection with other fans are unmatched. You'll get the thrill of seeing your favorite team clinch a playoff win live, and it's a memory you'll never forget. This season, Gametime is making it easier than ever to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature called Gametime Picks. Filters out all the fluff and shows you only incredible deals on incredible seats, so you can focus on what matters, being there. You can look at, so with Gametime Picks, you can look at the tickets for any upcoming game, any upcoming playoff game, and it hasn't been any easier. There's the super deal, which will show you the value on amazing seats, the deal that you're getting, and you can even preview your point of view from the spot before you buy. Then there's all-in pricing. That's a game changer. There's no surprise fees at checkout, and then knowing your tickets are backed by the Gametime guarantee will give you complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account. Redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks so much for spending your Thursday night here on Locked On Nittany Lions. I would see this is kind of what I'm alluding to here. I would hate Knowles messing with our defense. And I think Jim Knowles would fit in perfectly with what he did at Ohio State. Penn State's got a really strong secondary. And I think that one of the best things that Jim Knowles has done is constructing that kind of secondary at Ohio State. Now, it certainly helps when you have Denzel Burke and Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom. But I don't think Penn State's secondary, what it has returning for this season, is that far off. You return King Mack. You have Zach Wheatley being that free safety, just that center fielder. And then Elliott Washington's going to get better. AJ Harris, Zion Tracy, Davian Collins. That is a really good group of four at the cornerback spot. So losing Cam Miller was kind of understandable in the scheme of things through the portal. So Penn State's got a strong secondary, and I feel like that is Jim Knowles' biggest strength. And just talking over, you're just kind of reaching out to Jay from Locked On Buckeyes. And the first thing he said that if Jim Knowles were to end up at Penn State, that would be a massively strong fit for what Penn State has and what Jim Knowles likes to do with the defense. So this is a no-brainer. Penn State Had Jim Knowles always in its sights whenever there's a defensive coordinator opening, whether it was realistic or not? Because Jim Knowles makes a lot of sense with what Penn State wants to do. He is arguably the best defensive coordinator in the country. You let him walk and have full control. So Ohio State isn't just going to let him walk, right? Ohio State, because where we are in the college football offseason, and more things are going to change. NFL coaches are going to get hired, and then assistants are going to move. There's going to be a lot of movement. When you're coming off of a national championship, you do not want to just casually lose your defensive coordinator. And Oklahoma definitely wants, I thought this was an interesting point. This isn't mine, but I want to reiterate it. Why Oklahoma? Why other than, maybe, a raise, but Oklahoma let's talk about Jim Knowles' perspective. Why is Oklahoma so optimistic? Well, the fact that, they feel like they can land him. They've made a serious effort. They've made a strong financial offer, but it's also the fact that personally this matters to Jim Knowles. He's coached at Oklahoma State before. He's very familiar with the state of Oklahoma, and then his fiance actually lives there. So personally, it would actually make sense for him to leave, if he wanted to, Ohio State to go to Oklahoma. So that's why they're very optimistic and everything. So for that side of it, Penn State, they need to go all in, and that's why they're making this kind of push, or at least it's aware that they're targeting Jim Knowles in this case. And what is the backup plan if we don't land Jim Knowles? Well, the defensive coordinator, this route that Penn State's gone with the defensive coordinator spot has been interesting to say the least. It seemed like I thought of the available, because I really didn't think we'd get to this point, right? I thought Danton Lynn made a lot of sense, but USC said, no, our defensive coordinator is not going anywhere. I would say that it is not Anthony Poindexter. I said that it was not his job. It was his job to lose. And Poindexter is not a bad option, but when you're comparing Knowles to Poindexter, that's who you're going to go with, right? Poindexter, it would be a solid hire, and I think that's the direction Penn State goes in. They're kind of swinging for the fences, and if they strike out, I think it's going to be Anthony Poindexter, unless somebody else emerges. Again, we've seen people, NFL jobs are still open. There's going to be rotations. Guys are going to be available. Penn State's going to continue to try to hire the best candidate. If that happens to be Anthony Poindexter, I don't think that's a bad move, but I'm talking about you need to make a splash hire. Jim Knowles is the best defensive coordinator in the country. It is no disrespect to Poindexter, but he is not that at this present time. And there's the possibility that he might leave. Jim Knowles is from Pennsylvania. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Maybe there's kind of that, hey, I could return to my home state and possibly, win a national championship. Wouldn't that be something to go down in history as you win a national title at one school and then you jump over to another school and you win a national title in back-to-back years? I think that's something to think about. No way we get Jim Knowles, right? It's a parallel move. Why would he leave a national championship team? If Penn State's going to make a competitive offer, that's why I say you have to go all in. If that means resetting the market for what it means for coordinators, you do it. What it also means is that other people on staff are probably going to get a pay raise. It's going to be very interesting, because you can't just give you can't give that lump sum of cash to Jim Knowles and not expect, because Andy Kotelnicki certainly deserves a pay raise as well. And I think that's where it's going to get interesting, to say the least. I can't say that it's likely. I'm not going to sit here and say, because again, Oklahoma says they are very optimistic. Oklahoma insiders, the Oklahoma Rivals site actually posted a video about them reacting to. So is that the writing on the wall? Are they too overly optimistic? But I think the fact that Jim Knowles is linked to Penn State here, if they were that confident, right, that it was a done deal, and it's not a done deal yet, what does that mean? That has to mean something. That has to mean that Penn State is making a push here. Give him $4 million for all I care to get him. I think in terms of actual dollars and everything, so you can't do just that. You can't just overly say, all right, we'll give him, why stop at 5? Why not make it $5 million? Why not make it $6 million? Because Penn State will make that money back, because then you start to alienate coaches on your staff, right? Andy Kotelnicki's making about $1.5 million. Do you really, right? Do you really want to upset everybody? It's kind of the argument for NIL and rosters. You can't just pay. Some schools are doing it, and I guess it all works out, but it definitely creates some tension within locker rooms for NIL. So it's certainly going to do the same thing for coaches. So you can't just give a blank check and say, well, we'll give you, why not stop at 5? Why not 6 million? Why not 7 million? Basically all the way up to James Franklin's salary. But I say you definitely make that push to try to offer him as much money as you're willing to offer. So I see people, so I have pulled up a comment of people responding to others. He ain't going to Penn State. Don't know. We'll see. If he was such a certainty to go to Oklahoma, why didn't he go already? And any chance if we get Knowles that some Buckeyes will hit the portal and come to Penn State? I would say no, because unless he has a really strong relationship with a player or two. So a lot of Ohio State players are going to go off to the NFL. If we're alluding to maybe a Caleb Downs, for example, that wouldn't happen. There's also not necessarily a need at safety in the secondary and everything else. Ohio State's defense is going to look very different, to say the least. But I don't think that Jim Knowles would bring any players with him. Ohio State can be competitive. I'm not even saying that he even leaves Ohio State, because I know that Ohio State is not trying to lose its coordinator with where it is in the cycle. Ohio State doesn't want to be the school looking for a replacement DC. Penn State's already in this situation. Oklahoma's in this situation already. It's not ideal. Notre Dame's in this situation. Now, does Notre Dame try to make a push if they know that, hey, Jim Knowles is looking to leave Ohio State? So this is not, the Buckeyes aren't going to just let him leave. If they still have NIL, they can still go get another defensive coordinator that they would like to, they'll make a push for another elite type of defensive coordinator if they happen to do that. So Ohio State will have no issues trying to retain a semblance of its defense. The entire Ohio State defense or strong key players won't just all follow to Penn State. So be nice, right? But I really do think Penn State's it's more about how Penn State's defense is strong as it is already. Denai Dennis Sutton, Zane Durant, Lonzo Ford will come back from injury. Tony Rojas, Dom DeLuca, and the guys that I named in the secondary, that's a solid defense. So any defensive coordinator can really succeed with this group. Tom Allen would probably have this defense back at a top 10 level, but why can't you get better than that? OU, that's laughable. Oklahoma, I think Oklahoma, from the perspective of Brent Venables probably is on the hot seat, but that's probably also the indication that he needs to take a step back and give some responsibility to somebody else, right? Is that he needs to make a change because he's trying to do too much, right? When they took the role away, so Chip Kelly comes in and opens up the offense a little bit for Ryan Day, that actually helped Ohio State immensely. So we'll get back into the comments section, talk about where Penn State stands and everything when we hear from our sponsors here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is also brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively, but finding the right therapist and fitting in sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace, the leading virtual therapy provider, makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your own home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans. For most of insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize mental health. As a listener of this podcast, you will get $80 off on your first month when you use Talkspace and go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter promo code SPACE80 and you'll get $80 off your first month. That is Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege, promo code SPACE80. So where does Penn State go if they don't get Jim Knowles? Because I really feel like it is hit the grand slam or strike out. And it's not because of where you are in the cycle. Danton Lynn was not available. or at least he was potentially available, and USC was able to keep him back, and was able to retain him. And this really hasn't gone the way that it necessarily should have. I think this was one that was supposed to be, it was rumored to be wrapped up pretty quickly, and then it's gone drawn out. Penn State really hasn't had to deal with this in a sense. You had Manny Diaz hired pretty quickly. You had Tom Allen hired pretty quickly. I know that Ryan Walters was a candidate, but timing did not work out, and it's because Penn State made the national semifinal. I guess that's a good problem to have, but not when you lose your defensive coordinator like that in that timeline. Clemson reached out. They waited till the end of the season, and then lo and behold, Penn State's without a defensive coordinator, and Tom Allen leaves to join the Tigers. Penn State can go far with or without Jim Knowles. I'm saying you got to take that next step forward. You have to be competitive. You have to show commitment that you want to win. The window is here for this season, and then with everything you lose going into next offseason, that's why you have to go all in now. I'm not saying that Ethan Grunkemeyer won't be good or that Penn State won't be able to adapt and adjust. It's the talent that you have presently. Well, Drew Aller's a bad quarterback and this and that, and James Franklin can't win the big game. James Franklin has never had resources like this before. James Franklin has never had an offensive coordinator, and ironically enough, Penn State is going up against the likes of, yes, Ohio State, but Oklahoma in this conversation as well. Did you know that Andy Kotelnicki was targeted by Penn State and Oklahoma, and Penn State ended up winning overall? So Penn State won that one, targeting the same defensive coordinator. So maybe it's personal for Oklahoma this time around, since they lost out on Andy Kotelnicki, that whatever they're trying to do, they're trying to make the ultimate push for Jim Knowles. There is that personal connection there. If Penn State does not land Knowles, if this ends up being a strikeout, I think they most likely go with Anthony Poindexter. The available and unavailable candidates, it seems like Penn State had a list. It was Danton Lynn, it was Ephraim Banda, the Cleveland Browns safeties coach, and then just kind of one by one, Penn State's coordinators have, Penn State's options at coordinator have become fewer and fewer. And I really feel like it is down to swinging for the fences for Jim Knowles, and you settle and go in-house with Anthony Poindexter. And it's not that Anthony Poindexter cannot be a play caller. He's been the co-defensive coordinator. It is not to say that Anthony Poindexter is not a bad coordinator, that he would be a bad option, because I think he'd be a great option. He's been the co-DC under Manny Diaz and Tom Allen. He's been with Penn State for over 4 years now. He would be the right guy in a normal situation. But this isn't a normal situation, especially from Poindexter's point of view. Poindexter is linked to the potential opening at his alma mater at UVA. Do you really want to be in this situation again? I feel like if you hire Jim Knowles, the likes of Jim Knowles, you would have some continuity for once, and potentially be able to retain him for at least 3 or 4 or 5 seasons. Again, he's from Pennsylvania, but you're going to have to make a competitive offer, especially if there's that personal link to Oklahoma. It was for Tom Allen. Tom Allen has family in the southern part of the country, and he moved to be closer to his family. Jim Knowles' fiance is in Oklahoma. He's going to want to be closer to his fiance and his family in Oklahoma. So Penn State's got to find a way to, maybe that personal push is, you're from Pennsylvania, come home. Of course, it's going to be financial, dollars, and everything, but that's plan B. If you don't win with plan A here, and it's already not necessarily likely to begin with, at least that's just the way that I see it, there's kind of cautious optimism that, Penn State shouldn't even be in this conversation. Penn State shouldn't be here. It is strange to talk about, in a sense, that Penn State's even linked in all of this. There's also a chance that Ohio State makes a financial push, because there was a ranking for the most profitable teams or the most valuable teams in all of college football per Forbes, and it's Ohio State and they almost generate $2 billion in terms of total value. Penn State was number 7 on that list. They were closer to $1 billion. So in terms of overall total revenue value, Ohio State was at $1.9 billion. They can certainly afford to pay its coordinators. They can certainly do that. But I do find it interesting that Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles were making closer to around $2 million. and the highest paid coordinator overall would be in the neighborhood of $3 million. Again, that is what it's going to take to get Jim Knowles. It is a swing and a miss if they don't end up with Jim Knowles. If they go with Anthony Poindexter, that is still a good promotion. He's been with the program for 4 years. He's coached alongside Manny Diaz, Tom Allen. You're going to get a similar construction on defense. I think that's the right. I think that's the, again, under any circumstance, let's say Knowles wasn't available, I would say, and I have said, go with Anthony Poindexter. Go with Poindexter because it makes sense, but then he could potentially leave in a year, 2 years time. Virginia could open up sooner rather than later, and then Penn State is not necessarily scrambling, but they're back in the same situation that they have been with Manny Diaz, now Tom Allen after one season. You would be in the exact same situation because I don't fault Poindexter for wanting to go back to his alma mater and take that job. We'll see how it all unfolds. Let's check in the comments one final time because here we go. You are not winning a national championship with James Franklin. If it wasn't for an easy playoff schedule, you wouldn't be saying the same stuff. Things change. Notre Dame beat Penn State by 3 points. Oh, well, Penn State doesn't have any wide receivers. Penn State can't get back into the spot. Penn State has won and has been competitive. They have won 23 games over the course of 2 seasons with its problems at wide receiver. Now imagine what they can do with, again, another year of Drew Aller where he is better. Another year of Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen. 4 returners on the starting offensive line. Deny Dennis Sutton back. Zane Durant back, right? You're looking at it from an outside perspective. I'm looking at it from Penn State's perspective of they need to go all in because this is the best opportunity to make a push and get to the national championship. This isn't a fringe. If you think this is a 10-2 team, that they're a fringe team that will barely make the 12-team playoff and they'll get bounced into the first round, you're not correct. This is a team that can certainly be in the top 4, that can contend for the Big Ten championship, for the Big Ten conference title. Tell me, what does Ohio State exactly have returning at quarterback? Oh, well, Julian Sayin. Has Julian Sayin started a game? What's his college football experience? Oregon, Dante Moore. What's his years of running of the offense? Do they have 2 co-starters at running back returning? Last time I checked, Ohio State's losing Travion Henderson, and I'm pretty sure Quinshawn Judkins as well. Emeka Ibuka. I know Jeremiah Smith's there. I get that. I'm not saying that Ohio State won't be. I'm not saying that Ohio State won't be a good team and won't be at the top there. But Penn State and Ohio State and Oregon are all in that same category now as the favorites, the perennial favorites to win a Big Ten title and be one of the top 4 teams in the country. So basing it off of one game, that's fine if that's how you want to look at it. But I look at the bigger picture of that these players will get better, and one game does not define a player's trajectory or career in this instance. So Penn State believes it can win a national title, and that's why we're even having this discussion, because they wouldn't make a move like this. They wouldn't try to make a move like this if they didn't think they could. And that's where I'm going to finish up here on this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I appreciate everybody spending their Thursday night with me. Thank you so much. If you are new to the show, subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. This is an everyday show. This is your team every day. That's why it's the Locked On Podcast Network. That's why it's Locked On Nittany Lions. And we talk about more than just football on the show. We talk about basketball and wrestling, all your favorite Penn State sports teams here on Locked On Nittany Lions.